Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, March 19th, 2014 meeting of the Planning Board of Raymond, Maine. This is our postponed meeting due to a weather delay of March 12th. The Planning Board will come to order, and the board does have a quorum. We'll start with roll call.
William Priest,
Greg Foster,
Robert O'Neill.
Bruce Sanford,
Benjamin Crowder.
Steve Lanay.
This is a public proceeding, and unless the board specifically votes to go into executive session, you have the right to hear everything that is being said and to look at all of the exhibits that are presented. Please notify the chairman if you are unable to hear or see. The board works from a published agenda and will be considering tonight's items in the following order. First, we'll look for approval of our minutes of February 22nd, then a tabled application for the Fry Island application, and then followed by a public hearing with the Boy Scouts of America for their planned renovations, followed by some planning communications and some planning board business after that. In each instance, the burden is upon the applicant to demonstrate compliance with the provisions of the applicable ordinances. After the board votes on the merits of each project application, it will prepare a written notice of decision. Because the notice of decision may substantially affect any appeal rights, and also as a matter of courtesy, the board asks that those attending the meeting with regard to a specific project not leave until the board has completed its discussions on the project. Generally speaking, appeals from adverse decisions must be filed with the appropriate appeals board of Superior Court, as otherwise provided by law within 30 days of this board's decision. Also, to be certain that you preserve your individual right to file any such appeal, you must be certain that this board's record evidences your appearance this evening in opposition and the basis of your opposition. All persons speaking, including representatives of the applicant and members of the public, are asked to stand, state their name, address, and affiliation with the project. You must sign the sign-in sheet if you are speaking for or against a project. All persons speaking shall address the chairman. Okay. So our first order of business is the minutes for February 22nd.
I'll move the minutes of the site walk.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approval of the sidewalk minutes? And opposed?
Abstain.
And 2 abstentions. Next is we need a motion to remove the Town of Fry Islands application from the table. Someone could do that.
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor? And opposed and 1 abstention. All right. Before we get going, the board has received 3 pieces of communication. What was 3? 4 pieces of communication concerning the Fry Island application. 2 emails. One of them from D. Johnson, the other one from Lewis Howe. A email and a letter from the Friends of Raymond Cape, and another email from Betsy Gleestein, a resident of Fry Island. Does the board have all those? So we'll just enter those into the record. So our purpose today on the Fry Island application is to go through the finding of fact that for the vote that was taken on our last meeting, and then our final vote for the application. Jim, I'm not sure. Don't think we really. Has the board all had a chance to read the finding of facts? I don't think we probably need to go in it blow by blow again. Do you? No. Okay. So I just asked you to think I know the answer. Finding of facts was taken from all the previous meetings and compiled.
Correct. We, both Mary and I went through this. I've compiled basically a history. That's what the procedural history is. And then we went through each of the criteria under the shoreline zoning and for the site plan. Went through. Mary proofed and edited as necessary. And you basically have the version before you tonight for denial of that project.
Yeah, it's from a review of all the minutes of the meetings and all of Jim's reports from all the meetings.
Okay, and you have also?
Yes.
Okay. So now a procedural question, are we voting for the finding of facts?
Procedurally, you would, if at the end of your discussion you are comfortable with either this or an amended version and you all vote for the amended version, I think you would have two separate votes. One is your ultimate vote to deny the project, and your other vote is to accept these
Accept
findings of fact.
We would have to accept the findings before we deny the project.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So is there, under discussion there, is there anything that someone found in the finding of facts that they would like to change?
I thought it was generally well written. It did seem to recount the history, a lengthy history, as well as can be done succinctly and well. You can quibble with the word here or there. You might have used the term oodles instead of several. Talk about the members of the public who spoke against it, but other than that, I had no problem with the rendition.
Mark, as the representing the applicant, have you had a chance to read the finding of facts?
Oh, well, I certainly have, but I wouldn't comment on it. I would certainly ask you to
Okay.
reconsider and vote in the affirmative.
Yeah, I figured it. That's a surprise.
That's what he said. We need-
What do you need for a motion, to accept the minute, accept the?
We need a motion to accept the findings of facts.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Is there any more discussion? All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
Might as well stay consistent.
Well, and one abstention. So finding of facts have been accepted for one. And now a final motion on the project.
I'll move that the Fry Island parking lot application be denied based upon the findings of the board procedurally and is affirmed by the findings of fact as we have approved them tonight.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? So the vote then, an affirmative vote is a vote to deny.
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor? Yeah, opposed? And one abstention. Okay. Done. Thanks, Mark.
I wish I could say the same.
Well, it's been entertaining.
We'll be sending out the correspondence to this effect tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. Danielle is out tonight possibly due to illness, so if she's not in the office tomorrow, it may be delayed, but we will try to get it out tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. I'll miss you.
Wish I could say likewise. All right, our next order of business is a public hearing for the Boy Scout of America application. We'll start off, Jim, if you could kind of just run down the application, and then I'll ask you to kind of just give it one more overview, one more time of it, and then we'll open it up for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. Before you this evening, the Boy Scouts of America are seeking improvements at their Camp Hines and Lodge facilities. The parcel is located on 127 plus acres off of Plains Road, shown as tax map 9, lot 14 and lot 42. It's located within the Rural District and the Limited Residential and Recreational 1 District, LRR1. Their planned improvements include the following: a new internal loop drive and widening to the existing access drive, construction of a new 9,500 square foot plus or minus dining hall, relocated parking and drop-off area, approximately 112 to 115 spaces. The existing parking lot will be converted to a new subsurface wastewater system. There will be a relocation and upgrading of the shooting ranges for both rifle, shotgun, and archery. There's a plan for utility upgrades with a 3-phase power. And on the opposite side of Plains Road, where their current training facility is located, there'll be some accommodations for military personnel who will be coming soon to make some of these site plan improvements. This is located in the shoreland zone, as I mentioned, so therefore they have to meet the shoreland zoning standards for the following: principal and accessory structures, parking areas, roads and driveways, stormwater runoff and flood protection, septic waste disposal, erosion and sedimentation control, soils and water quality. It has been noted that in their pre-application meeting with the board, I believe now we have a copy of the application that they've submitted to the DEP for a stormwater permit. I believe at the pre-application the board took under consideration that they would allow that to comprise of our stormwater review, and we'd be looking for the DEP approval of that to meet our standards under stormwater management. But you can go through each one of those standards, and then when time is ready, we can go through each one of the site plan review criteria. I would recommend we go through shoreline zoning first, and then follow with site plan standards.
Okay, you're up. Or-
You're welcome.
Just recording, sorry.
The button must be pressed again. There you go, okay.
Good evening, my name is Keith Smith. I'm a landscape architect with Terrence DeWan and Associates, representing the Boy Scouts this evening. Tonight I have with me Eric Tarbox, he's the Executive Director of Pine Tree Council. Scott Martin, he's the resident ranger, full-time ranger up here at Camp Pines. Walt Simpson, he's a volunteer Vice President of Lands for the organization. So they will help answer some of the questions as we go along tonight. I'll get into the site. Jim gave us a nice intro. I'll get right into the site. You can see here there's a darkened area that represents the parcel that we're talking about. We have Plains Road. Down here you have Panther Pond, and we have the Tenny River that runs along the side. The existing training center is up here, and the camp road into the facility runs down through the middle. Most of the camp center is down here. There's an existing shooting range and shotgun range off to the side. And right here at the center is the existing parking lot. There's also another range, shooting range over here. So when I'll keep this up this evening, I'll put it over the side just to give you context as we speak. This is the area that we're going to be concentrating on. There's no improvements down in this area, with the exception of some maintenance to a bridge crossing over the Tenny. The site plan. We presented a month ago. I'll give you an overview again. Since then, there's been a site walk for a number of you that went out to the site. I couldn't be there that night, but that day, but I heard it went well. So here we are again. We have the Plains Road. Here's the training center lot on the north side of the Plains Road, and here's the existing access road into camp. And right here, for reference, that's the existing parking area. So as we start from the top, as you come into the site, what the objective with this primarily is to produce a new parking, produce a new dining hall, and rearrange the ranges. The ranges will be here. The existing range was over here, as stated before. So I'm going to start with the road. As it comes in, it breaks off for about 1,600 feet. The objective is to take the loop outside the major camp area. There's going to be more pedestrian traffic along this to the shooting range and to the marching grounds. So that's more of an activity ground. So the idea is to keep all traffic to the exterior of the property to avoid conflict with the scouts, etc. So in doing so, we're relocating the parking area up here. The parking is being relocated because, one, the existing parking is more central to the camp, and it's not large enough currently for the existing uses. What happens at drop-off times is the vehicles come in, all the cars park, and they have trailers that need to be loaded up to bring the campers' gear into the campsites. And it becomes a very congested and unsafe condition with people walking around, trailers and cars. So with the new arrangement, the objective is to get the parking further out of the center of camp. In this configuration, makes it so that it's a much shorter loop to get to there, and in a location where we're not interfering with a lot of pedestrian movements. So the objective here, the parking, you'd come in, it's a loop that goes around. I think there's 107 spaces since we last spoke and prior to the stormwater application submittal. The far bay, we recognize it as a very large parking area, and you have new standards that are coming up which are going to require smaller standards, even though we do come in under the old standards. What we did was take that further bay and turn that into a grassed parking area. So it'll be essentially overflow parking. Because it's only, primarily Sundays are the days where you're going to get the camp turnover. So beyond those Sunday drop-offs throughout the summer, most of the parking will not be utilized. So with that, gravel parking does work. And I know you guys had concerns about how it was going to be delineated and striped. And it's only on those Sundays where that's really going to be in effect. And we're going to have stakes and markers out there, and the camp will tie ribbons along those stakes, etc., during those days only, to make sure the parking is organized properly. And there are also volunteers that are going to be out there directing traffic. So that's the only time that I ever see, the parking lot really being full, utilized to its full extent, and needing more organized parking, and there's going to be assistance for those moments. So moving beyond there, we'll go a little further down where the existing rifle range is and the shotgun range. This is being proposed to be a multi-use field, a recreation field, just for general sporting activities as well as archery. And it will also function, in the event there is a function that requires more parking, the multi-purpose field can serve as overflow for that as well. As you go further down the road, we get to the new dining hall. As Jim said, it's about a 9,600 square foot footprint, and we've provided a service access drive to the camp so that service trucks, you're going to have weekly Cisco trucks and waste pickup trucks that will be coming in there. And as I said, that's the outside loop keeps them out of the camp proper. So it's a nice, they can come in, swing in back up to the service area, and then be able to drive back out the drive. At the dining hall, I'm showing 5 staff parking and 5 additional spaces, of which 3 are accessible spaces, which will provide access. The intent is to have a wraparound deck on that, and that will give you access to the deck, which will then give you access to the building. The building is intended to have a walkout lower level. The 2 levels are not intended to be connected, so there will be an additional accessible path which will provide access to the lower level. And as you can see, it's the way it's designed. It's designed so that your views are going to be out toward the lake and toward the lower camp. In the lighter green areas in here, that's some screening just to screen the service area. That will likely be done. It's all, as I stated in the application, it's going to be native vegetation. If you've been to this site, it's all pine tree and undergrowth, and the intent is not to fancify any particular area of it, but to make it blend in with the natural surroundings. And our hopes for the planting is actually that some of the scouts will be able to do some of that and work towards some merit badges. for sustainability, such like that. So, coming back from the dining hall, I'll hit the parade ground area. That's the old parking. It's going to function as the septic, the waste system for the dining hall. You can see it's laid out in 4 beds currently. And that will be grassed over and become also a parade ground for the Scouts. As we get to the shooting range, it's a series of berms separating. There's an existing bay. This will be the relocated bay, and we'll have 2 newer short bays and a long bay. The short ones are 100 feet. The long one's going to be 100 meters long. Those lengths are based on standards, NRA and competition standards for the Scouts. And I have, it's a brief, I'll give you a little, it's not a pretty, just a real quick view of that area. At each one of those, there's a shooting shelter as well. This was taken in the snow, so it's difficult to see, but what I wanted to point out is for errant shots or anything like that anybody's concerned with, the shelters have, these steeply pitched roofs, and you can see the berm in the background. This particular picture was taken in Scarborough, so that when you're under the canopy, it protects shooting over berms, etc. I know people are concerned with wondering how to retain all that, but that's the design intent, and that's how those function, so that you can't get shots all over the place. And what I wanted to show here as well, I have 2 sections. This is the long range here, which is A. So in that one, you can see the green represents the side berm. So if you're inside the range, the side berm recommendations are 8 feet, and then the back berm, which is actually the target zone, is a 20-foot berm that's steeper, so that shots going down, and obviously, you can see the little shelter here. The roof comes down, so it would be really difficult to shoot above that berm. That's how the whole design is intended to be. This section here is across B and B, looking in that direction. So you'll see these 3 bumps are the 3 bays. So that's how each one of those individual bays are separated with a berm that's vegetated. It's at a 2-to-1 slope, and it will be vegetated. So it's going to be covered with plants, native seeding for the most part. So, but I wanted to give you a little more detail on that. Adjacent to that is a relocated shotgun range. From the site walk, there was an interest in providing a berm for protection and sound on the Plains Road side of that. So we listened, and we provided a similar berm to the interior. This is going to be just a cleared area. It's not going to be all graded out, and it's going to, the understory is to remain and be maintained at a low level, but we're not intending to come in and grub that entirely out. And there will be shooting stations over here. You can see a light line that goes around the shooting range. According to NRA standards, that's called the shot fall zone. The shotgun shots, it's a lot lighter weight projectile that comes out of those, and they have a shot fall zone where, based on all the calculations of the power of the shot and the size of the weight and everything, that the shot should fall within that zone based on the angles of the shooting area as well. So, and I'm showing that just to let you know that within the NRA standards, that entire area falls within the Camp Hines property. We're not exceeding any boundaries or with that area. And as we come back out,
How close to the end of the property does that fall?
I don't have the actual dimension. There's probably, I can measure that out. I'm not going to guess. I'll scale it. And I can provide it later as well, if you want. So that's the 900 feet. That's the wetland. So the wetland. The scale on that. So it looks like it's probably about 300 feet from the property line, but I can confirm that for you at a later date.
It's also, if I remember correctly, it's a fairly steep grade up.
It's a very, yeah, and I didn't mention that, but one of the reasons for locating it in that location is because it's much more protected than the existing location. From the range, this is the highest point. This X right here represents the highest point on the Camp Hines property. So on the backside down here and on the backside over here, it is flanked with a very steep grade that's also going to help contain any of that, as well as the noise. That's one of the major intentions, is to consolidate and be able to keep noise down for all the neighbors. As we come back out, included in the site is the training center lot. The improvements, what's happening here is this is where the military IRT members will be staying. There's probably 40 to 60 at any time that are going to be there to help out. Most of the activity will remain in the training center itself. That's where they'll be dining, etc. But just because the number of them, what's being provided, there's 3 shower units that are being installed. They're like 60 by 16, and there's a septic system associated with that that's being proposed for the site as well. The intention is to leave that septic in after, these will be removed after the construction is done. We'll leave the septic field underground in place for potential failure of the training center. And also with the training center, there's a proposed office addition that we would like to discuss as well, that we're showing adjacent to the existing training center. So that's basically what we are proposing. I know we got some comments back. We can go through those. We'll be addressing those with the subsequent submittal next week that we need to get in. So we'll be submitting responses to all that, but willing to discuss any of those questions tonight if you would like to discuss them.
Okay, thank you.
So you had suggested, Jim, it would be best to start with the land use standards. Is that what you were?
Sure. Yeah, with shoreline zoning, but I will open the public hearing so quick. Are there any specific questions before I open the public hearing from the board?
I have one question. The ADA access from the parking lot that goes up to the deck, is that going to be a paved bituminous or some type of hard surface?
Right now it's projected to be a stone dust. Requirements are firm so that firm and smooth so the wheels could roll on it, and it's intended to be a natural stone dust.
Exactly, and I'm sensitive to not wanting to pave it because that's
Yes.
not outdoorsy. I was just concerned if it was just gravel or something, obviously that would be a problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You want specific questions now?
That was my question, is if you wanted specific questions about stuff or if you wanted to do
No, I
public
would do,
hearing
yeah,
first.
public hearing, and then we'll do, if there was a general question, not specific.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's just wait.
I'll-
That's all right.
That was a general.
That was good enough. Yeah. All right, then I will open the public hearing. I would ask if anybody wants to speak for or against the project, please proceed to the podium, state your name and your address, and then speak away.
Brian Walker, Fire Lane 77, which is off of Plains Road. I sent a document, I don't know if you received it or not, an email through the town's management today, but I'm going to just read from that. First of all, I think you guys, just generally, thank you to the planning board. I think you've managed the public input. I think the Boy Scouts have done a phenomenal job of allowing the public to see and do the walkthrough, so I think it's been a great example of how the town can run effectively and efficiently. As a nearby landowner to Camp Hines, I've always found the camp to be a welcomed and valued neighbor. I've been a scout myself, all the way from Cub Scouts right up through exploring, and I recognize the value that scouting brings to both our local community and to the country, and I think Pine Tree Council does a phenomenal job. I think having reviewed it and having had the chance to do the walkthrough, that the site plan application is well thought out. It'll greatly improve the camp's ability to deliver scout services, while also, I might add, being very environmentally thoughtful and friendly to the lake, and actually improve, I think, in a number of areas. I think the one outstanding issue for me is clarification on the potential use of the enlarged shooting range in the future by outside organizations. The shooting range enlargement and relocation that's going to be closer to Plains Road now has the potential of increasing the noise from the range during its use. The current range can be at times heard from our property, and it can be particularly disruptive in our lives when semi-automatic weapons are fired. During the site walk, in which I attended on February 22nd, I spoke with Eric Tarbox, and he explained that in January the Pine Tree Council had terminated their agreement with Weaponcraft to use a shooting range, and he assured that a number of us that were there that they had no current plans to allow usage of the proposed enlarged shooting range by anyone outside of scouting, except for occasional use by the Cumberland County Sheriff's Department and possibly some occasional public education courses on proper gun management. So with that in mind, I'd like to suggest that the Planning Board make this a contingency of the application approval, that any adjustments to the above stated usage of the shooting range, that is, usage by scouts, occasional usage by the Cumberland County Sheriff Department, and possibly some occasional public education courses on proper gun management, require a further review by a town board, whether that's the Planning Board or the Zoning Board of Appeals, to allow further public input at that time. The only other comment I would make is with the shotgun range, I don't know if there's a need for berms, additional berms that would help isolate that from adjacent properties that are closer than mine. But it might be something to also consider if there could be some kind of contingency to make sure that if there are noise problems, that there would be mitigation of those issues. So the construction is going to increase the traffic on Plains Road, both the troops and the equipment, and I think part of being a good neighbor is recognizing those things happen, and I'm fine with that. So I'd be fine with favoring the support of the Camp Hines application if the Planning Board can see their way to putting in that contingency of just making sure that if there's going to be usage for the shooting range other than what's being currently planned, that it has the opportunity to come back in front of the town for public comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Sir.
Thank you. Neil Jensen, 315 Meadow Road. I spoke to a couple of you on the day of the site walk, and I just wanted to be sure that my comments got to all of the ears. On the whole, this looks to me like a very well thought out project. It should be good for everybody. In particular, the idea of moving facilities away from the waterfront is both environmentally and socially beneficial. I just have a couple of small concerns. One is the Boy Scouts need to recognize that the shooting activities cause noise pollution, particularly for the nearby neighbors. And I have a couple of suggestions for that. I floated the idea of a berm on the north side of the proposed shotgun range, and that seed seems to have taken root. So I won't pursue that. Happy to hear it. And I would like to suggest that it be a condition of approval that the Scouts make an effort to contact not only the town but also the nearest neighbors directly if there are going to be more all-day shooting events. The other matter that I had a question about, and I'm sorry I didn't catch all of the description of the project. If there is in fact a plan or a possibility of moving the office up here from Portland, then I would ask if that is going to produce any significant additional traffic on Plains Road. And I have no reason to think that that would cause any problem, but I would just want to be sure that somebody had asked the question. Thank you.
Anyone else? You're not putting in a boat launch, but.
You're getting the neighborhood cluster. The neighbors do pay attention to what happens around us. My name is Peggy Jensen, and I too live at 315 Meadow Road. I just want to say that I really appreciate what the Scouts have done and what the Planning Board has done in order to encourage and welcome public awareness and information and participation in this whole process. It was really nice to have that announcement of the site walk worded in such a way that people felt quite sure that they were welcome, whether or not they had any official business there. So I do appreciate that. I also want to say that I really appreciate the history that the neighborhood, the larger neighborhood, has with Camp Hines. As you know, Panther Pond Association and the Raymond Waterways Protective Association implemented 2 federal Clean Water Act grants. And Camp Hines was very, very cooperative with us in mitigating 2 severely eroded steep sites. And we're very grateful for that because that has made the water cleaner and healthier for all of us. So we do appreciate that. Also, that we appreciate that Camp Hines has indicated they'd like to work with us again when Panther Pond Association is going to redo the Panther Watershed survey that we did 10 years ago, just to check up and see if there's anything we can do to further keep the, the water clean and healthy. And the Hines folks have said they really would like to work with us on that. So we really appreciate this interest in being neighborly and being supportive for all of our shared concerns. I too am concerned about the noise. I hear it. My hearing is better than some people's, so I do hear it a lot. And it's disconcerting for visitors. It's also very disconcerting when you're out on the water and you suddenly hear shooting and you don't know where it is, where it's coming from, and you don't really want to be on the water if you don't know where it's coming from. So it does carry, and you do hear it up in that north end, certainly. It seems to me the suggestion of putting that sound barrier berm on the Plains Road side would be really helpful because there is that natural barrier on the steep formation that's there. So that would be really great. And the other question I had was, I heard the presentation for the site plan and visited the site, but I wasn't aware until I read a news report that there was a plan to move the administrative offices from Portland to Raymond. So I would just like to have more information about that aspect of it. How big is that building going to be? How many people are going to be there? How many folks are going to be coming every day for working there? And, what more information about the use? That was just a piece that I missed when we did the site plan walk. I didn't hear that. So my thanks to the organization for working with us, and I look forward to this being a good and happy event for everybody.
The wording on the sidewalk was all Danielle. We had nothing to do with that.
Danielle's not here. I just missed it, apparently.
Please pass on the facts.
We will.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Messer. I live at 31 Pulpit Rock Road here in Raymond. I'm a former scout, an Eagle Scout. I did my scouting down in Scarborough, but spent many a summer at Camp Hines here in Raymond and have very fond memories of the waterfront, the camp, and as well as the shooting sports. That's where I first learned how to shoot a .22 rifle and shoot a shotgun. And so I know a lot of talk has been about the noise nuisance. And I agree guns are loud, but it's also a highlight to a lot of youth that attend that camp. It's their first exposure to firearms and something that they treasure for the rest of their scouting careers and the rest of their lives. So it's a very unique aspect to Boy Scout camp and Camp Hines. So I wouldn't downplay that or try to reduce the facilities because of that. It's a very well thought out plan. Obviously, Eric and his team have put a lot of thought and effort into this, and getting the IRT to come here for a 5-year commitment is really unheard of, and an amazing offer from the military, and can really help to build not just this camp but other Boy Scout camps in the area for the next 5 years. So I'm all for it.
Sir?
Chris Flynn, 136 Plains Road. I live in the house right across the street from where the relocated shotgun range is going to be. I'm happy to hear that it looks like a very well thought out plan. I like the fact that there's going to be a berm there, it seems like. I do have, some concerns. Now, of course, I've always heard shooting going on over there, and most of the time it hasn't really bothered me. Occasionally it has. And this project certainly looks like a significant expansion and or expansion of use of the shooting ranges. They're expanding, and I guess I'm concerned about that and the hours of operation is also something that I look at, and it looks like it's 7 days a week for the most part, from 8 in the morning till 8:30 at night, and even on Sundays, I guess you could do that. And they don't. I can't say in the past that they've been shooting from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. But I guess I'm concerned that if they're allowed to do that, that could be kind of it could be bad for the quality of my life, and maybe even the value of my property where I live right across the street. So just wanted to mention that, and those were my concerns. But otherwise, looks like a great project that's going on there. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay, now close the public portion of the hearing. Just as a general comment to address, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't, or Raymond does not have a specific noise ordinance that we can cite to in our deliberations. So depending upon or I should say anything that we kind of agree upon as far as noise goes would have to be in agreement with an agreement with the applicant and with the town as far as the use or the amount of noise that those sites produce. I mean, there is the state's time as far as cutting off noise, but the town does not have a specific noise ordinance, as far as I know. Is that correct? Okay. So I just wanted to.
I think the only thing, Mr. Chair, that
Yes.
the board could possibly fall back on with that would be the first item under the shoreline zoning, which was will maintain safe and healthful conditions. Maybe the hours of operation could
Yes.
fall under that, being a disturbance to people's lifestyles and conditions.
Yeah, I agree that there are means that we can.
But you're correct,
use,
where there's no limitation on the decibels or the range.
All right, so with that, we can start in. Starting with the shoreline zoning.
Start shoreline zoning. As you saw with the previous application that was before you this evening, there are 9 criteria under shoreline zoning which have to be met in the affirmative for the project to pass. The first one is will maintain safe and healthful conditions. I think the biggest issue that will need clarification or maybe even confirmation from the fire chief is due to the dining halls size, it will require a sprinkler system. And with that, there'll have to be a 20,000 gallon tank to serve for fire suppression. They've shown it on the plans. In talking with the chief, he had requested that that tank be moved back a little further towards Plains Road so that on their approach into the hall, they can grab it prior to getting to the hall. Where it's now, it's relatively close to the building, so they prefer to have that pulled back a little bit. And I did not see an actual hydrant location for them to hook up their truck to for that tank. So again, those are, I don't think it's a major issue to move that tank or show the hydrant location. Again, it's just minor details that we're going to need clarified, and prefer to have a sign off from the fire chief on that before we agree to go final.
Okay.
Also, I think under this condition will fall the discussion of the various gun ranges, the rifle and shotgun ranges. As was discussed at the site walk, they have added the additional berm for the shotgun, shielding some of the noise from protruding towards Plains Road. All the other ranges, as you can see, are contained under housing, and the elevation of the shot is basically horizontal, so those won't be going up in the air. I think the only one that could, be an issue would be the shotgun because of the clay pigeon, the blast going up in the air and that noise going outward. I think the bigger issue, though, is the core hours of use, and for the board to have a discussion with the applicant on weekday use and preferably at different reduced hours on weekends. I know in the application, the gentleman spoke of it, it was from 8 in the morning, a few interruptions of times basically for lunch periods and dinner periods, but to approximately 8:30 in the evening. The board may want to consider the evening use. Again, my personal feeling is that most people are at work during the day, during the week, and it wouldn't be as obtrusive at those times, but in the evening and on the weekends, we may want to pull back some of those hours of use for consideration of the neighbors and, as mentioned, participants on the lake. Again, with the noise, the location in a valley, the clearings, on a calm evening you can hear one person talking on the other side of the lake. So the noise, we really can't control the noise. It's going to be disrupted. So I think it's really important for the board to consider the core hours as the limitation. And I know the Boy Scouts, it's not going to be a barrage of 8 hours of gunfire every day. It could be intermittent, but I think we do want to have some respect for the neighbors in the times in the evening and on weekends. And then the last piece on the consideration of that range is when we were out in the site walk, we had discussed about limiting clearing or possibly putting the buffer zone for the shotgun range in a restrictive buffer so that it couldn't be cut or cleared, so it would maintain a vegetated presence. And even though the elevation goes up, noise will travel towards Plains Road, and preferably, keep that vegetation. I recommend a limited buffer so they can go in and cut debris, or if they need a few trails or something like that, but for the most part, keeping that mature and ground growth to help with the buffering of the noise and the visibility as well. And then I did talk to the Public Works Director with regards to activities at the existing parking area where we actually crossed the street for the site walk. You saw some vehicles parked there. And with the construction activity and Boy Scouts being on, a couple things came into mind. One, Public Works had said they had discussed this with Camp Hines before, and that they would provide some services to help close up that parking lot and plant a berm. So they should reach out to Nathan and coordinate exactly what he will agree to. There were previously crosswalks there from the training center crossing the street. Again, coordinate with Public Works as far as showing where those should be. And I think at least during construction we should have signs warning of the activities going on, because there's going to be a lot of foot traffic and vehicle traffic probably crossing the road given various stages of construction. So those would be my recommendations, and let you further discuss.
Thank you. All right, from the board. Now,
We're talking about safety.
Talk about safety.
You want me to go?
Well, go ahead.
I just have a couple, this all goes down the shooting range again. A couple questions. You're shooting from the shelters, and I'm looking at the long range, the 100-meter range, and it seems like your shelter is almost directly downrange from the first shooting range. Granted, you have berms and everything, but it seems, it doesn't make sense why you wouldn't move it towards Plain Road, maybe 30, 40 feet, so that your shooting shelter is not in the direct line of fire from your first 100-foot range.
Then it would be in your shotgun pellet fall down range.
Okay, we then move everything. It seems, it doesn't seem safe to me to have that shelter directly downrange from your first 100-foot range. That's just, to me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And then my next question would be: is that shooting area also in the pellet drop zone from the
shotgun?
from the shotgun? It looks like it is.
Yeah, this is there.
No, it goes, the angle goes out.
Well, you're assuming that no one's going to shoot. If you have a shot in that general, a clay pigeon starts going that way, he's not hitting it. They shoot toward that way. They're going to have pellet drop on your other ranges.
Times
Correct.
they should, and also with the shotgun range, there's a frame that you shoot within, which limits your movement so that can't happen.
It's called a safety standard. I don't know if it's hard for me to talk.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, it's called a safety standard butt, and there's a safety butt in England or a safety stand here, and there's a very specific design for that. And when a youth stands in this, it has vertical pieces of wood that come up on either side. And for anybody who's in the service, it's a sector stake. That's what it is, and it controls the sector of where the shotgun can go. So it is a hard-built sector stake, essentially, and they have to stand inside this safety cage. And these safety cages can be turned, or a safety butt, however you want to call it. And there's a very specific design for this. In fact, the whole design of this comes out of the NRA range source book.
I know you said that, and it's referenced in here, but it's not in here. So I'm not knowing that standard, I'm going to have to be asking questions.
Sure.
Okay. What about the other issue of being that?
And then the proximity seems unsafe, but it's actually pretty standard to have a range where there's back-to-back shooting behind berms. Just trajectory, just based on that alone, and the type of shooting that's going to happen, it's not going to loop over that, because it's going to go in a straight line.
Okay, next question. It looks like you've got gravel paths out into every one of these shooting ranges.
I showed some access paths. There was a question about accessibility to the ranges. So what I'm showing is...
Are those,
There was a question of a handicapped person being able to, when the range is cold, to get their wheelchair down to replace a target, and then to be able to wheelchair back and be able to shoot at their target. So as a response to that concern, we asked Keith to put in a little trail to get to the target.
How is that going to be controlled from a standpoint of access? I mean, to me, it looks like someone can almost walk right along here and onto that. Are there going to be any kind of gates, anything to prevent them from just walking into a range?
Oh, there's a very strict range control procedure, and flags, there are signs, there are range safety officers. They can only shoot when the flag is up, when the range is clear. No one can shoot without very specific NRA guideline and Boy Scout risk management guideline trained adults that are running the range. And it's pretty typical to have an access, even vehicle access, into the back of the range to change targets out.
Well, I understand the need for the access, but I'm just wondering if they need control. And that's what's, I think, one thing that's somewhat missing is all that documentation on how you're actually going to control it. The question of hours of operation, can you give us an idea of how this, obviously scouts are not going to be just allowed to go up there anytime between 8 and 8 and just go shoot.
can you give us an idea of how that's going to be managed? Is it going to be, are there going to be classes at certain times, or?
Certainly. When we stated the 8 to 8, we wanted to put a window in there for when merit badge classes could be in session. So merit badge classes would typically start after breakfast, go throughout the day with a break, and then I believe as we stated in there, 1 or 2 nights a week of remedial or catch up for the boys that need to be able to make their scores, to be able to get their merit badge. So we didn't want to intend that every night along a typical week that boys would be shooting. We typically have 1 or 2 remedial nights or catch up nights for the boys. So those times in there approximate summer camp hours, which are typically 6 to 7 weeks over the summer. Outside of the summer camp season, weekdays are really hardly ever used at this point, nor have they been historically. Once a month, on a weekend, we have a practice for the explorers and venturers. So I think it would be, we would like to request the board that rather than a one-size-fits-all for the whole 12 months, that we understand that there are summer camp times, but then the rest of the year when there isn't summer camp, the kids can't come and practice during the weekdays because they're in school.
Eric, I guess my question regarding time there is, campers come for 1 week generally?
Yes, sir.
So they typically would arrive on a Sunday and leave on a Saturday.
Yes, sir.
So those 2 days, arrival and departure day, you're typically not going to be using the range those days anyway. They're breaking camp, setting up camp, getting ready to go.
Correct, over the summer, yes.
So really Monday through Friday are 90% or more of your activity during the week, is that correct?
During the summer, yes.
During the summer.
Chris?
I have a question on the use of the different ranges. You have the short range, and then you have a long range, and then you have a shotgun range. On the site walk, I thought it was made clear that they would not be in use at the same time. Is that correct? Or could you have the long range rifle range being used at the same time, shotgun range and the pistol range? Could they all be used at the same time?
They could be. It's designed for them all to be used safely at the same time. But that's a function of our ability to have the number of trained adults to be at each individual range. So the likelihood of us having it does exist, but that would take a significant amount of currently NRA trained people to be on every single one at the same time. And we don't have that many people currently, but we could.
Okay, and the other question with regard to safety, and this is more of a building question that could be answered at the construction phase of the buildings that you would be shooting from. You said that they'd be shooting at a low angle, that nothing could penetrate through the roof, so that you'd shoot up over a berm. Are there steel baffles in these roofs, or are they just wood? How are the bullets kept from straying from the building?
Sure. Well, out of the NRA source book, there are designs for these, they call them eyebrows, and we're following those designs under the NRA guidelines for how to build these eyebrows. They are made of wood, but they typically not that close, they don't have steel. I'm not an engineer in that way, but the NRA designed them specifically for a reason. I probably couldn't comment why it might not be good to have steel right in front of them. I believe they designed them as more of an absorption.
The indoor ranges I've seen designed do have steel, that's why I asked the question.
Again, I'm not an engineer, I probably shouldn't. But I guess that's a consideration.
So, Eric, I think that, personally, I'm not too concerned about the safety issue. I'm sure that you guys will handle that appropriately. I am a little bit concerned about the hours of operation, and if we could somehow either narrow that down, or even if we wanted to put it into, if you have a different set, instead of the one size fits all, a summer set, a non-summer set type of hours. But I do think that noises, the use is an issue for the surrounding neighborhood, and I think 7 or 8 hours of listening to gunfire after a while might get a little old if it's, day after day. So if you could give us some sort of a more narrower idea of actually when you anticipate it being used, and not so much even to kind of restrict it to that use, but kind of just something for planning purposes, that would, this is our intent to use it, and also in there would be our intent not to rent it out. It would be solely for the Boy Scout use. And then I think we would be able to look at that and to kind of see, when that noise is going to be when that noise could be generated and for how long in the day we would anticipate it, so that we could kind of get an idea. I don't think the design and the safety is all up to those standards, and the use is all controlled by the safety officers. So, I think that's not really too big of an issue. But I am concerned about the hours of operation.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Just expanding on that, on Bob's thought just a little bit, a thought occurred to me earlier that we're going from one pistol range to 4, and so that made me think, well, how many scouts can use each of the 4 pistol ranges at one time? How many scouts are there at camp? So how many staggered pistol range uses will it take during the course of a week to accommodate all of the scouts at camp, however many times we're supposed to shoot during the week? And is it better to use all 4 ranges at once and cluster everybody and make a bunch of noise all at once, or is it better to use just 1 or 2 ranges and spread the noise out over the course of a longer time in the day? And I don't know the answer to that, but maybe there's some kind of a statistical thought you could you could put together that would kind of tell us how these parameters are going to work.
Sure. Well, I can tell the board that for the summer camp program, the pistol is it's limited, and it's an introductory safety style program, and that is very limited by the number of staff. Most of the staff we have are paid staff to do this. So during the summer program itself, we would not be able to have a lot of kids shooting at one time with the pistols. Most of the shooting is 22 rifles. And there's a little bit of shotgun in there and some black powder. But most of basic summer camp experience is 22 rifle work, which tends to be tend to be much quieter.
You only have one range, so you may only have a half a dozen or 10 kids at a time up there for an hour or whatever.
Correct. And we're calling them multi-purpose ranges because Cub Scouts can use the 100-foot short ranges for BB and pellet rifles. And then also 22 rifles for short work for beginner kids. So they're really, they're multi-use. It just so happens that the co-ed Explorer and Venturer program that starts at age 14 can do the Scholastic pistol program. But that is a much smaller part of our membership. The lion's share of our membership is Cub Scouts, then it gets smaller to Boy Scouts, then it gets much smaller for the co-ed program that can do most of the pistol shooting. So I think that's an example of some of those statistics I could probably provide that might help the board as well.
Great. Rob?
One question, I don't know if this is how you can handle this appropriately, because it's kind of a question to the public comment that were made. I heard that there's some concern about not knowing when the shooting is going to occur. Would Camp Hines consider some kind of indicator flag or some kind of indicator so if you're a resident on Panther Pond, you can look up and go, okay, we're going to have shooting today? I don't know. I mean, I've heard some concerns of, well, we don't know where the shooting is coming from and we don't know when it's going to happen.
Well, we currently have red flags as part of our risk management. We have to have a red flag at the ranges so that when the
But then they can't see it from the lake,
correct
example.
Maybe we could put a flag up at the top of the road.
I mean, that's maybe one nice thing to just, for the residents, that, hey, we're going to be shooting today, so that they're somewhat, I know when people shoot around my house, it's a lot better if you know what's coming, then suddenly it just starts happening.
So you can duck?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't make so many people mad.
Where do we talk about this is where we talk about the road, the existing parking lot and crossing that road?
Yes.
Yes, right.
Because that is a concern to me. Right now it's just open. And if you're going out of the street, I go down there, you just really get nervous when you get up there. because there is a crosswalk, but it may or may not be used. It's just so open to access. I don't know if there's any way to sort of close that off some so that you can park there, but you shouldn't walk there.
We'll address that. Yeah, we're looking at that. We got that comment, and I know it's hard to see. I can show you a little closer.
I can see back from there.
That's that's one consideration that we're looking at, and then we can talk about that, and we'll submit something with our next submittal to try to address that. What it shows right now is formalizing that parking just a little bit more. It's still going to be a gravel lot, but providing a vegetated buffer along the roadside and just having the two entrances at either end. One would be the entrance to the road, and the other one would be an entrance at the other end of the parking lot. And having one, and that would direct, you would have one concentrated crossing point. Historically, there have been 3 crossings along that zone. So we're trying to decide if the 3 are fully necessary, but we can easily concentrate that and potentially put up some signage to give some upcoming indication that that's going to happen.
Crosswalk type sign, crosswalk?
Yeah, well, especially you're going to have all that traffic with the military people there, but when you're just not sure where they're going to cross. So, I mean, I obviously have to see it, but if somebody doesn't know that road and they're in there, especially coming from the lakeside, from the Crescent Lakeside,
coming up the hill,
all of a sudden you're there. You're quite a bit of clearance coming towards Crescent Lake, but it's just coming up there. All of a sudden you're there, and somebody's in the road. You know.
Understood.
I don't know how to, I'm just saying it ought to be addressed so that somebody has some warning.
Yeah, no, we intend to address that.
And equally to that, during construction, they'll likely have construction activity signs, orange signs out there for construction activity, because there will be times when they're crossing the road. So at least during the construction, it should be fairly mellow. But I get your point, following when everybody's gone, it is kind of, comes up on you quick, and it would be ideal to have some pedestrian crossing signs, crosswalk warnings or something.
The other piece of that is that weekends there's a lot of activity in the front of the property, near the road, where there's tents and all that goes on. And that area is pretty much, it's all mixed up together as well. You think of, I didn't know there was even buildings inside, but they camp up front there, and then it really gets to be.
We would like to change that as a practice. We've got so much good area inside of the camp, and that's one of the kind of the new management pieces that we're bringing with some new board members and some existing board members and myself. That field is great for baseball, for frisbee, and so forth. We really don't need to be setting up tents in there. We've got beautiful campsites all throughout the interior camp. We would prefer it also for BSA branding. For the brand BSA, to not have that front field just be full of tents and coolers and so forth. So that's one of our one of our intents to shift some of that use. And I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Gibbers? How much of, on a numbers basis, is the rifle range use being expanded as far as the number of boy hours or the number of boy shooters or whatever during the course of the week? Are we actually expanding exponentially by 50%, 100%, 200%, the number of rounds that are going to be expended during the camp week, or are we really just rearranging what's there and the actual usage is not really increasing?
Well, it's a function of number of youth attending camp and then the cost of rounds. We don't see that changing very much. We would like to see in the future many, many more boys using camp, but it's a function of how many customers can we get to come to camp. And that's been pretty flat, although it has been growing the last couple of years a little bit. I really don't see that many more boys signing up for the shooting merit badges as currently. I mean, almost every boy wants to sign up and shoot. If we have a lot more boys attend camp, then I could see many more shooting type activities happening. But the projections for the population may continue to remain flat or decline and we have a direct impact, or it directly impacts us and our ability to get boys into camp. So our total available youth is 88,000 in the entire council area, from Jackman to Camden, all the way down to York. And that is a very small total available youth. So we're currently serving about just under 8%, and our goal is to try to serve 10% or more of all ages, age 7 up to age 20 with the coding program. But if the population of youth doesn't change much, that's what we need. We need to either be stable, or we need the youth population to grow in order for us to get more kids in camp.
It almost seems a fair statement to me that you're, other than relocating and rearranging, you're not really increasing the total number of rounds usage that hasn't existed historically.
Not significantly. And we have statistics for the number of badges we earn and so forth, and we can share with the board how many uniform merit badges we
Well, actually, you're decreasing, aren't you? Because didn't you used to rent it out? Or
Yes, sir. Well, and we listened. We listened to a lot of neighbors, and we listened to a lot of comments, and, initially, there was a supporter, financial supporter, that said, hey, can we use that for a while? And, let's try it. And then we got good, strong feedback that wasn't in our best interest, nor is it in our core mission.
Yep.
So we, we've stated and we've written and we're saying that we want this to be core mission, which is the safe and educational use and enjoyment of firearms by scouts. So we have terminated, a relationship that we had with a third party. We're not doing that anymore.
Yep.
And anything we do is going to be either focused to scouting directly, or, as the previous comment said, if the sheriff, or law enforcement requests that their troops need to requalify, and that's important for the public interest, or if the board says, hey, for the safety of town, we want to have a hunter education course or something, then we'd be happy to do that. But those would be really the only examples out of core mission scout.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just so I'm clear, it sounds as if what we need is kind of an overall program summary, maybe to match up the caliber use with the time that the program could be going on, or a little more specifics than just 8 a.m. to 8:30 p.m.
Exactly.
Maybe a little more of a breakdown in detail as far as what programs being run at certain time, because if it's pellet guns and 22s, that's a lot different than shotguns and 9mm handguns.
Can you do that?
I think we could do that, sure.
Okay.
All right.
That kind of, maybe not all the specifics worked out, but a little more detail on that level may be useful, so
Yes.
that, the quieter guns could be used at the further extent of those core hours.
I thought we may have defined that a little bit already at a submission we had, or possibly not, but I'll certainly look at it and redo that again.
Yeah, the only thing that we saw for hours of operation was...
Just 8:30.
Just,
Yeah, that's the only-
that's the only thing we saw. It
I
was in
remember
the-
seeing.
The executive summary was the one.
Yep.
It was in the camp, in the executive summary, yes.
Okay, the sprinkler system, the tank, and the hydrants, you okay with that? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Two things. Can we also, it's not required, I don't see it required of the planning board, but I would like to see you submit the design standards from the NRA to Chris. So when he's going out and actually looking at how you've built these things, he knows how they're supposed to be built. You don't have those standards, right?
No, that would be coming at the building permit stage.
Right, but I was,
Yeah.
You can make it a condition as part of the building permit.
Right.
Those have to be provided.
my other question was, I don't know if the fire chief has answered this. There was some concern about at the dining hall that the corner in the lower right of that loop,
Yeah.
it is,
One turning radius?
right, it's pretty tight.
Yeah, I will enlarge that with our next submission for Wednesday.
Okay.
And that may change too, because that's the general location where they're looking to put the tank.
Right. And where does Hines Road go?
It terminates at the, where's the lake? Right, the lake.
At the lake? Okay. All right. It just goes off my
Yeah,
drawings.
it keeps going.
Yeah.
right
This is
down.
the old existing road.
Oh,
It
okay.
goes right down here to the old dining hall, which is right here. So it comes right there.
Okay. That's all I have.
Is there anything else? All right, so I think we've covered the, let's see. disposal of wastewater, we talked about there.
Yeah, if you want me to quickly
Yeah,
summarize?
go ahead.
Number 2, under shoreline zoning, will not result in water pollution, erosion, and sedimentation to surface waters. They have provided an erosion control plan. We've asked for a few minor tweaks to that. However, the more important piece of this is there has been a stormwater management permit submitted to the Maine DEP. Towns received a copy of that. They're well within their compliance for phosphorus export. They appear to meet all those standards. Prior to us accepting, we're going to need some kind of correspondence or approval letter from the Maine DEP, having them sign off for approval. But I feel that they will easily be able to meet that.
And I think, and the plan calls for capturing all of the water coming off of
Yeah, the components they have specifically, which I know is concerning the board, is around the parking lot. There's a lot of berms and swales and infiltration, so that clearly meets our shoreline zoning standard this time, because they're introducing that water back for recharge into the surface, and there's numerous wooded buffers being used as well for infiltration, for the access road, for the multi-purpose field, and for the lodge itself at the end. So again, I feel that that will be well in compliance, but we just need to document that.
Right.
I don't know if the board has any questions with that at this time.
No, let's go.
3, will adequately provide for disposal of wastewater. They have provided an HHE 200 design form, but they will require, again, state sign off for the design of the septic system. It'll be going under the existing parking lot and then be covered for a parade ground. Again, we'll need sign off from the state prior to that. The only concerns we had, and I know the final design is not done because they haven't even done the lodge yet, final plans, we'll need to take a look at the elevations with the proximity of that to the road to make sure there's no grading interference between the septic system and the road, because the old road access continues by that. And we just want to make sure there's no ditched water or anything, infiltrating one way or the other.
And I'd like to just comment on the septic design for the temporary facilities has been submitted to my office, and it requires state approval, so I've sent that on to the state for approval. Once that comes back to me, I can report back to the board whether they signed off or not. I should get that back in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, and that system, though, I believe is just below the 2,000 gallon threshold, is that correct?
That's correct.
I
Yeah,
think it
right,
was.
1900.
The variance was to a public water supply.
Water
Yeah,
supply.
it's 50 feet too close to the
Yeah,
well.
so that's why it needed state approval, but once that comes back, it'll be good to go.
And the same with that, there's an access road that goes quickly by that bed. We just want to make sure that during construction with the equipment and everything, they don't damage any of that bed.
Is that, Ben, did you have something? Yep. Okay.
I do.
Good.
Where's test pit 2? I can't find it.
On which system?
The main system. Well, they're sequentially numbered. I got test pit 1, test pit 3, and test pit 4. I can't find test pit 2.
Was that listed on HHE 200?
Well, it required 2 test pits.
I think there was 2 on the one you submitted.
There's two up here, and there's one shown here, so.
Before they do the design, they can just do another test.
Okay, I just wanted to point out that I couldn't find test pit 2. My other question is on the temporary septic system. It looks like you have room to get outside the 300 feet. I'm wondering why you're going for the variance.
There's a road with a fence there.
You can't get outside.
Somebody has access up to the back lot.
There's a back lot, has access through there.
Now we've got basically a commercial kitchen operating into that septic system, and one question I saw, it said no food disposal system. Is that accurate? You're not going to have a food disposal, a garbage disposal in the kitchen?
No, there's no garbage disposal.
No.
Okay.
They're gonna be eating on paper plates.
Okay. Because I saw the grease pit, so I thought, well, you're going the full length of the grease trap, so I thought.
What's that? Yeah, it's temporary, I mean, it's gonna be used.
Well, it's temporary, but it isn't. You're going to keep it, so that's why I think it needs to be.
The waste system, but the kitchen will be temporary.
Okay.
There are 2, we're talking about the temporary one for Solders, but
Right.
then after the summer, that's gone, but then, are you
Well, it's
talking
not-
about the new dining hall?
It's not gone. I heard you're going to keep it. That's what I want to make sure that
System's gonna
it's
be
built
As a
right.
backup.
The kitchen will be.
Right, but the septic system will be kept.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Not the kitchen. It's
It would
a
just be
trailer.
capped
It's a
off for
mobile
future.
military
Okay.
trailer kitchen. But we'd love to keep it. We're not gonna let
Move on.
Move on.
Number 4 will not have adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat. Based on the positioning and the use of buffers and where they're pulling that dining hall from its previous use further back from the waters, we don't feel that there'll be any adverse impacts to any of those habitats or wildlife. 5 will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland waters. The building is approximately 200 feet back from, at the closest point, I think, is 200 feet back, maybe further, to the clearing.
It's more.
Yeah, to the clearing is 200 feet. But again, they're utilizing several restrictive buffers, and their plan is not to clear anything to the lake and to maintain their existing access ways. So again, we feel the condition will easily be met. 6 will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comprehensive plan. We feel that can be meet, but we did not receive a copy of their actual Historic Preservation Commission letter, and I've talked to Keith, and he said he'd be forwarding that. They do have that. So again, we feel that can be easily met.
Didn't we get that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's on the it's on the Raymond Town website in that, in the big
Yeah.
environmental
That's in
assessment.
the assessment, but it wasn't in the actual
It just
application.
hasn't been part of
okay.
our submittal.
Oh,
It's not a big deal, but we just need a
That was
copy.
great.
I'm sorry, I
Nope,
misunderstood.
nope, no problem.
For the neighbors here, you guys probably already know this, but if you have a chance to read that, it was really interesting. Did you have it? Okay. That's just a side. Commercial break.
7 will not adversely affect existing commercial fishing or marine activities in the commercial fisheries or maritime activities. Again, we don't feel that there'll be any issue with that. 8 will avoid problems associated with floodplain development and use. They've moved everything back actually from the river, so again, we don't feel there'll be any substantial impact. 9 is in conformance with the provisions of Section 15 land use standards. When the time comes, we need to go through each one of those items under Section 15. I have included campgrounds because I think there may be a few other campground sites needed, but again, with their design, I think they've provided adequate detail for many of these things. I know I've got some questions about, again, mostly minor details, but we can clean this up for a future date.
Good.
Yeah, questions about that.
Why not include Q in that? I'm just curious about that.
Q. Can we do
Vegetative. Cutting vegetation for development.
Q under shoreline zoning. What is Q? Is this
The land use. You talking about the land use ordinance or the
shoreline
zone?
zone?
Clearing or removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting.
Potentially
I think
nasty.
because it's such a limited, well, I mean, we can include it, but they well would exceed under what they're allowed to under that provision.
25%.
Right, and they have provided the calculation of what that actually is, and they well underneath that for 127 acres, so.
That's good to hear. And the shoreland zone on their map is 250 feet apparently, but isn't
It's
it
actually 600, it's 600, 600.
That I just showed that those are the thresholds as it goes.
Yep. Okay.
So I can add that in there to make sure that they're compliant with that, but, you know, they've provided the documentation that they're well within that.
Good.
So that would conclude the shoreline zoning.
Okay.
Do you want to continue on to give them some feedback on the site plan standards?
Yes. Yeah.
Site plan standards, again, there's A through K, first being preservation of landscaping. Again, they're using many buffers for stormwater, maintaining much of the vegetation there. of concern would be, again, as we mentioned, does the board have any concerns about maintaining a tree buffer or vegetated buffer for the shotgun range out to Plains Road and maintaining that will remain in that state? That would be the only question. And again, we recommend a limited buffer so they could do some tree harvesting of a minor caliber and for trails or whatever. So we didn't want to just cut it right down so they couldn't do anything, but similar that we did for a previous application. So I'll let the board have any objections to any of that or discussion?
Everyone okay? Yep, that sounds good, Jim.
I can
Okay.
say something.
B,
Wait a minute.
I would like to say that my dad did a timber sale for that property. It was probably back in the 60s, and they've used Forester ever since that time, as far as I know. And I would just recommend that they continue with their proper silvicultural management. And that's more than adequate to meet all these concerns about sound and visual and all that. So I would not add anything extra, anything restrictive in terms of harvesting timber.
no. B, relation to proposed buildings to the environment. Again, where we did the site walk, you can clearly see this is probably one of the best locations on the property as far as removing it back from the river and lake, but allow, good coverage visually of where everybody is and in the center of the campgrounds. Our only concern was raised by Bruce, which is, ADA compliance and making sure that we can maintain the ADA compliance. And probably the most concern is right around the end of the loop, whether we have, some kind of different material. But I think if we leave it gravel with the trips going in and out, it's going to be a lot of rutting, during different times of the year. So we may want to consider using some harder material in there or better compacted material in there so that we don't get a lot of disruption and rutting, especially with deliverables going in and out frequently. Maybe we consider pavement or reclaimed pavement or something like that, as well as for the ADA compliance to make sure that that's something that can be maintained to, again, hardscape or brick or concrete or reclaimed pavement or something that compacts. With regards to vehicle access, the fire chief didn't have any objections to the lane size. With the shoulders there, they still have 22 feet of access. The only concern was, again, a return loop, which they're going to address. The slopes are, max slope is 8%, which is well within our allowance. And I guess the only question again would be just the final location of that tank and the access for the fire truck and how you blend that all into the radius. D, parking and circulation. Again, they provided a parking lot, new parking lot. I counted 107 spaces. 9 of those would be for a trailer or spaces for a truck and a trailer parking. The only request that we have is just, again, how they plan to manage that when there is parking, because it's not a hard surface, and how you're going to stack up vehicles, and if there's going to be, they should just put a note on the drawings. Either it'll be temporary delineated with some kind of paint or ribbons, or probably even better, some kind of attendant directing people where to park might be the best solution for that. But we'll need to have some kind of note for that. I think it, what's that?
Crosswalks?
For the parking, for the...
Well, that would fall,
Oh,
Plains Road.
For Plains Road, well, that kind of fell under safety. I thought we already addressed that.
Yeah.
Well, it's mentioned in, that's the only reason
I mean, that's an existing parking lot up there. Again, we've discussed for safety, closing up those so we have 1 or 2 points of entry so that's not wide open. And we'll address the crosswalks, but I know that's a conversation that they're going to have with the Public Works Director up on that one. I do think it's important, though, that we have some justification that we've met the standard for the dining lodge for the parking ordinance based on the space of the dining hall and the number of spaces, so we can make sure that there's adequate spacing.
How do we do that without the dining hall design?
Well, you've got the square footage.
So just based on square footage?
Based on square footage, we'll need some kind of parking summary, just to
My only
to
question
verify.
about that is that parking area isn't just related to the dining hall, it's related to the
Correct.
camp as a whole.
And
How
that's-
do you determine how many parking
And that's
spaces you
where
need for that?
they're gonna have to provide the evidence for that, that's sufficient for what they
That
need.
relates back to the shoreland 15G too.
Right. Under surface water drainage, as we've discussed, we're gonna fall back to the main DP for phosphorus export. Utilities, as I mentioned in the beginning, they plan on bringing three-phase power through overhead lines and new poles. They're gonna have to coordinate those final locations with Central Maine Power. I'm not sure where they are with that.
I had a question, why do you need three-phase power in there?
Well, we would like to go to electric kitchen for a variety of reasons. To use modern electric equipment for the kitchen, cooking and so forth. And beyond that,
Is three-phase available?
alter.
Yes,
it is.
It's available off Plains Road.
Okay.
The kitchen's gonna have large coolers in it, refrigeration. It's basically for the refrigeration.
I was just surprised it was there, actually.
And I'm told that three-phase is more efficient and actually costs you less after the cost of installing it. But to run all this electric equipment is better than having three-phase.
Also under utilities, I did include a little bit more, again, the septic system, and that if they're gonna be close to access ways or parking areas, we may wanna have some kind of barriers put up so that people can't drive over those. And lastly, there is a propane tank proposed for, again, I believe the kitchen services. We'll just need to note the size and make sure that there's adequate separation from that or any spark source per the fire chief's concerns. Moving on, special features. This is kind of a vague one, but again, during the construction process, it'd be beneficial to know where equipment storage, material storage, areas that'll be designated for tents or things like that, so that we can kind of keep things organized, especially near the training facility. And again, make sure we have adequate road safety signs out front. Again, we're gonna have a lot of traffic moving around, in and out, deliverables during that time frame. So maybe it's even called a safety plan during construction for vehicles and pedestrians. Exterior lighting. There's no street lighting or any exterior lighting other than what would be on the buildings. Again, we just recommend that if they could just give us a cut sheet, and we're just looking for full cutoffs so that there's no sky glow or anything like that.
I got a question. I can understand the scouting experience, no lights, but why no lights? I'm just...
Well, again, it's part of the PSA brand for our camp.
Even along that roadway that's really not for scouts, it's for the service the camp?
We typically would shy away from artificial lighting at camp at night, and also when the troops retire to their campsites, we try to minimize light pollution as much as we can.
Right.
It's just a PSA standard that we've had for many, many years, and we believe in it too.
And the fire chief's fine with that?
Has not made any comments, but I can ask for his opinion. I think his biggest concern is just making sure that he's got clear access for his vehicles, getting out there and location of his pumper truck, so in case there is a fire, he can hook up to it. Which goes to the next item, emergency vehicle access. And as discussed, it's an 18-foot actual travel width, but then there's actually 2-foot gravel shoulders with vegetation on the shoulders. So we feel there's adequate 22-foot wide clearance, fully supportable for a fire truck. We've already mentioned about the access coming back, the little loop. During times when the facility's not used, they'll have to address a Knox box at the gate for that, and I believe they've already had some discussion maybe with the fire chief about that, to allow him to have keys to the buildings or access points in case there is an emergency call or fire down through there. J, landscaping, as pointed out, I mean, this is mostly a natural area. There is some minor landscaping, I believe, down by the dining hall. And we've also asked for some wherever we create a berm up on Plains Road for that section that's going to be closed off, some small plantings up to there.
I had a question for you, Jim, actually, about that. You noted about given the change of use in the future, and I wasn't sure what you were referring to when you referenced the change of use in the future.
Well, because right now it's going to be kind of a busy construction area, but then it'll revert back to either a headquarters or offices. So when that happens, you know, again, looking at it, probably during, you know, I'm looking at during the training, after the construction's moved, there's still going to be activity of Boy Scouts going back and forth across the road. That's what I was trying to get at. And other considerations are Article 9 standards, just that will require some, you know, general notes, clean up things, signature blocks, you know, for the board to sign and make sure all your drawings are stamped with professional designers. And that would conclude all the requirements under site plan.
Board have questions or comments? Keith, you mentioned that an expansion of the office.
Yeah.
Are you going to be submitting that in this next proposal?
Yeah, we'd like a little input on it as well, though. As you can see, and I put it on this plan. I know you haven't seen this yet, but adjacent, what we're thinking right now is adjacent to the training center. There's a desire to potentially at some point bring the Portland office up to here, which is 11 people. Is that the?
Yes.
That's the.
That don't all stay in the office at one time. It's 11 total employees, but we cover from Jackman, Camden down to York, and most of our field executives are actually in their districts. But we do like to have a cubicle for them to when they come into the office, they have a place to stay, or work, or come to a staff meeting. But it's not an 8 to 5 position. They're out in the field mostly.
Is that part of this application at all?
We're considering putting it on there, and that's what the discussion would be about. What we're thinking is probably somewhere in the range of a maximum of 2,400, 2,500 square foot structure. For the 11 people, square foot wise, it would be about 13 parking spaces, which, you know, I've indicated on the plan as well, back behind the existing structure and where the office space would be located. And with that, we would terminate one of the access drives to the site, and that's where the pedestrian access would come across. What we're thinking is a connector between the training center and the potential office space, and then that connector would be an access walk right to the connector, so that would get you into the facility and to the offices, and then there would be a back entrance from the parking lot for the actual employees.
And you tie into this new septic system?
And that would tie into the new septic system, and then, you know, other utilities obviously would come through the corridor.
So, Mr. Chair, Chris and I were just talking. I mean, obviously, we'd have to see this on the plan.
Right.
And then we'd probably want to see an overall parking summary for the training facility and the employees and personnel using that. So we'd have to look at the max condition as if everybody were there at once. And then also you may want to check if there's going to be an increase of impervious surface to make sure your stormwater permits are have caught up to that as well.
If the plan's amended to include that, is that going to require a new public hearing?
That's for the board to determine.
I think it would, because that would be a premature.
I mean, we could.
Yeah, we didn't discuss that prior to just now.
Mr. Chair, I think that our position is that, you know, we wanted to at least bring it up to the board tonight so you know what the overall plan is. But it's also important to us to get our approval as soon as we can because we've got people coming to do the work. Right. If this is going to hold up that process, I think we'd probably like to come back for a modification of the plan at a later date.
Okay.
You know, my sense is it would probably require a public hearing and be set back a couple of months. And if your intent is to move forward, I think coming back and
Plus it
trying
will,
to add in a modification at a later date would make more sense.
not so much with our board, but it may delay anything they've got into the DEP as well. Probably more substantially than us. I mean, there's an outside chance that we could get through a public hearing and maybe get to a final in one evening. There's a little risk with that. But my guess would be the DEP might be the bigger hang-up, revising plans with them. But
And the fact of the matter is, I mean, we would have had that on the plans we submitted, but it really came up all of a sudden. And so that's why it's showing up at this late date.
I would also note that the fire inspector from Town of Raymond and myself have been out to the training facility where they would temporarily house some of these employees in cubicles, and the area is sufficient to handle this without any major modifications to the building. They had also discussed with us the possibility of doing in addition a dormer to the building, and when they did that, they would also do life safety upgrades to the alarm, and we've met with Scott and Eric at the site, so we're comfortable that this could be a temporary solution until they come in with their next phase to add the additional building.
they've got adequate existing parking there now? Put in place?
They did not show me that, but that's something we could look at at staff review.
Yeah, which is, and I may have missed this when we even done the site work, but for all of the military that's coming in to do all of this construction, where is that parking going to happen?
Well, they have rented 3 15-passenger vans, and most of these units are coming from out of states. They'll be flying in. They're going to fly into Pease Air Force Base apparently, and they're going to be vanned up. They're shuttled up to the location. So there'll be very few, if any, personally owned vehicles.
Okay.
Because they're coming from so far. So that's currently how it's set up.
Okay, that's great.
And that was part of the section G under the site plan that we'd requested equipment and vehicle storage temporarily. So we have an idea of where it is on the property.
Okay. Any other questions? Steve, you must have one more.
Oh, I got one more. I'm not trying to put lights on your site, but the fact that there are no lights, basically our ordinance has a design, says they shall follow this design standard, which requires lighting. At intersections, on walkways, do we give them a waiver to that? I'm on page
Where are you, Steve?
109 of 141. Land use ordinance, site plan review, item 13.
Lighting?
It says the following design standards shall be followed, and it talks about lighting along streets, parking areas, intersections, crosswalks. Do we basically have to give them a waiver to this?
Where they proposed lights.
It's a waiver. I don't think
If they propose it.
It's only for proposed lighting.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't see that
it's-
as does it say a requirement?
No, I don't
No,
see where
it
it says
says-
it's required. It just says if they propose
they
it, it has to
propose
meet
it.
these
Right.
standards.
Right.
So it's not
Okay.
required.
Yeah.
Is there a reference to public ways or private, perchance?
It's not even so much that, it's more that if you had suggested lighting, these are the standards that
You
you
know, I
have
think
to
the-
follow.
I see.
Sorry, I'm
If we had
reading it a
lighting
little
plan-
different.
If we had a lighting plan.
It says for proposed lighting now. If you're not proposing any, then.
That's my.
All right.
I think the areas that obviously we want to consider is, and I don't know, I can't remember if there's a street light now at the parking lot or the intersection of Hines Road and Plains Road. Is there any light there? That might be one area we might think about a light. And then obviously down on the lodge itself, you're gonna have to have something where you have your ADA access into the building.
But currently we have lights, on the old buildings, we have light like over the doorway.
Right,
And
that's what I mean.
Is that sort of
Yeah,
what you're going
you're
to?
so close, your parking is so close to the, to the building. I think a light on the building probably would be adequate to light that area
I
up.
understand.
Whatever ADA says.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta comply with ADA and,
But we're not suggesting lighting.
Right, just at those necessary locations.
You're writing that down.
No, we don't.
Suggesting lighting.
No, we're not suggesting lighting on the access ways, just at the intersection and possibly down the building.
The darker it is in the woods, the better.
Fickle.
That's why they're blue.
Well, different use.
Keep them in the dark.
All right, anything else? Do you have any other questions for us?
I think we covered.
Sure.
I just got an administrative question. I know, we've got a whole shopping list of material that we need to expand on and provide some additional detail, but I don't know what the board's schedule is, but if you satisfactorily address those issues and any questions that come up in the interim, would the board be in a position to vote on the project next month?
Our deadline, is going to be.
A week.
Is in a week.
It's a week, right?
So I would say that if you've met the submission deadline for next month, and everything, and no new issues come up, then I don't like to speak for the board on this regard, but I would think that there would be a good chance.
And I'm not asking for a guarantee, I'm just trying to understand the process.
But I could.
Do we have
certainly-
any other applications coming in for next month that we know of yet?
Not that we know
Not
of.
that we know
I
of.
mean, could we voluntarily move our meeting back to 4 weeks from tonight instead of the second Wednesday of the month, just as a courtesy to give them the time? Would that be out of line, or would that be something we can consider?
I think I would not like to do that so that we stay consistent with when our meetings are. I think I'd rather approach it the other way, that we could give them an extension.
An extra week on the submission.
An extra week on
deadline.
the submission, because of what we've gone through and the amount of stuff that we really have to look at. I think would make more sense.
2 weeks.
That would be okay with me.
But I want to run that by Jim first. So first, to answer to your question, we can just ask the board if any of them sees any major issues. And
No.
I don't.
I see
It
good
would be
neighbors.
contingent on DEP permit, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And the
Oh, yeah.
variance for their septic
Yeah.
system from the
Yeah.
state.
so,
Okay, thank you very much.
And Mr. Chair, just so that we're clear, the public portion has been closed?
yes, public portion is closed. That was done a while ago.
Yeah, I just wanted, just so they were aware.
Oh.
There would be another public hearing, because you were having that discussion about the training facility addition and whether you'd want to extend the public hearing.
Oh.
But they're waiting on that now, so
Right.
we do not have to extend the public hearing.
Right. So what,
You got to make a motion to table, or?
yeah, I will, but what about can you get your submission in?
If you'd like to give us an extension, that would.
I mean,
But yes.
Jim?
I'm amenable. I guess we just got to talk to Danielle for notification purposes, what her drop dead is. Usually it's 2 weeks prior to for the follow-up information, so now we'd be up to a week, and just getting those things out to you as board members in time. We start pushing it under a week.
Well, they can have the Boy Scouts deliver them to us.
So that's the only concern.
You're faster than the post
Follow-up
office.
comments getting back to you in time for the meeting.
Okay.
So I mean,
Because you get
I
staff
can,
review, us to review
Right.
it too.
So when is our deadline right now? Our deadline is next Wednesday?
The 26th.
yeah,
The 26th, which is...
Next Wednesday.
It's Wednesday? So if we at least push it to
Friday.
Friday,
Friday, even Monday.
even Monday, because you guys aren't going to do anything over the weekend.
Yeah, Monday.
So how about if we push it to Monday?
That would be fantastic.
Okay.
That gives them an extra weekend in case they need to
Right.
work on the weekend.
But they're working on the weekend and you work on the weekend, right?
I get to work on Monday.
All right, so we would need a vote to do that, and I guess we could do it all in once. So we need a motion to table the application to the next meeting, and then we would need a motion to allow for a 5-day extension until Monday
We're
the
checking that out now.
31st, until Monday the 31st, for
Monday the
submission
31st.
for,
First, yep.
submission for the following, for the April board.
So moved.
I'll move the extension.
I'll second the extension.
All right, let's do the extension first. So, motion to extend the deadline to to March 31st for the April board.
Question. Of
Yes,
course I'm asking a
please.
question. Now, this is gonna be for all applicants,
Why not be April 4th?
correct? Not just Camp Hines?
No, it'd be for only returning
Returning applicants.
Okay.
New
all right.
applications still
Okay.
have,
Yeah.
All right.
their deadline's come and gone, actually.
Yeah.
Okay,
So there's no new applications for
okay,
April.
all right.
Okay, all those in favor? All right, passed. And now, the motion.
I'd
you-
move to table the discussion and the final, or table the final approval until our next meeting session.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
A few minutes in case there's something they want to talk about.
So before we rush off to adjourn, we have one thing hanging, and that is our, going through our bylaws. And then, Mary, is that a colleague of yours that has offered to do the training?
Yes,
Okay.
Shauna.
Shauna. And Shauna has offered to do some kind of a refresher training for us and new training for new members.
That'd be good to me.
And I thought that, no, I wasn't talking to you, but I think, but it'd be a good idea, you know? So let me get the dates here. I didn't want to schedule it for tonight because I wanted to get everything out of the way this evening. The dates that are available are April 2nd, April 9th, April 23rd, and April 30th. When's our next meeting?
Those are all Wednesdays, right?
These are all Wednesdays. Hang on a second, I need a calendar.
Be the 9th.
What were the days?
Second Wednesday, the 9th.
The
Be
9th.
the 9th, which I think.
And Rob, I won't be here for that.
You will not be here for the 9th,
Nope.
all right? So my question is then, do you want to get together outside, I mean, just kind of a workshop, a training workshop, where we would, we have an hour presentation, and then we would go through the bylaws outside of the meeting? Just a special
Be like
time frame,
Be like a workshop.
like a workshop?
That would be fine.
That'd be okay with everybody?
Yeah. 23rd?
23rd? 23rd?
April.
Yes. I should be back for that.
April 23rd or April 2nd or April 30th? For the dates.
23rd is good.
Any of those.
The earlier in April, the better for me, because baseball umpiring is going to be starting right around that third week in April.
All right, so April, Steve, you around April 2nd?
Second?
That's better for me, I know.
Is that a
It's Wednesday.
Monday.
Wednesday?
Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday.
That's the week after next.
Yep.
Yeah, I am.
Ben, okay with you?
I haven't left
I
yet.
have nothing scheduled at all that
Nope.
day.
Yep, works for me.
I think so.
Doesn't mean there's nothing
Alright.
to do, it just means I won't be
Okay,
gone.
April 2nd, workshop, we'll do the training and we'll also go through our bylaws.
Dang, I thought I'd get out of town.
Movie adjourned.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Done. Nope.